First Contact Follies. The massive silver disk of the alien mothership hung in Earth's orbit like an ornament on a cosmic Christmas tree. Down on the surface, in the United Nations headquarters in New York, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to meet the first alien delegation in human history. Captain Zora Chen of the newly formed United Earth Space Force stood at rigid attention, her crisp blue uniform a stark contrast to the sea of formal suits and dresses around her. As head of security for this historic meeting, her dark eyes scanned the room constantly, searching for any hint of a threat. "Relax, Captain. You look like you're about to snap in half," came a whispered voice from beside her. Zora glanced sideways to see Dr. Marcus Reddy, Earth's foremost xenolinguist, grinning at her. His wild mop of curly hair and rumpled tweed jacket made him look more like an absent-minded professor than a crucial member of humanity's first contact team. Zora allowed herself a small smirk. "Someone has to take this seriously, Dr. Reddy. We're about to meet honest-to-God aliens. This isn't a time for jokes." Marcus's grin only widened. "On the contrary, my dear Captain, I'd say this is exactly the time for jokes. After all, laughter is the best medicine for pre-alien jitters." Before Zora could retort, a hush fell over the assembly. The massive doors at the end of the chamber slowly swung open, revealing three tall, willowy figures. The aliens glided into the room with an otherworldly grace, their iridescent skin shimmering under the lights. The lead alien, distinguishable by the intricate patterns swirling across its elongated head, raised a hand in what seemed to be a gesture of greeting. Its voice, when it spoke, was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Skithric, and we come in peace." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the human delegates. The aliens' use of English, albeit with an odd musical accent, was unexpected but welcome. UN Secretary General Amina Okafor stepped forward, her voice steady despite the momentous occasion. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth, honored delegates of the Skithric. We look forward to fostering a relationship of mutual understanding and cooperation between our peoples." The lead Skithric tilted its head, the patterns on its skin shifting in mesmerizing waves. "We are pleased by your welcome, Earth leaders. We have studied your transmissions for many rotations and believe we have a grasp of your primary communication methods." Marcus leaned in close to Zora, whispering excitedly, "Fascinating. They must have intercepted our radio and television broadcasts. I wonder how long they've been watching us." Zara shushed him, but couldn't help sharing his curiosity. The idea of aliens binge-watching human TV shows to learn about Earth culture was oddly amusing. The Skithric continued, "To demonstrate our understanding, we have prepared a traditional Earth greeting ritual." The alien cleared its throat, or whatever passed for a throat in its physiology, and declared in a suddenly booming voice, "Do-you-you-you-you." The silence that followed was deafening. Every human in the room froze, expressions ranging from shock to confusion to barely contained laughter. Marcus was the first to break. A snort escaped him, quickly followed by full-blown laughter. Like a dam bursting, the rest of the human delegates followed suit. Soon, the UN chamber was filled with the sound of uproarious laughter. The Skithric delegates looked at each other, their skin patterns swirling in what seemed to be confusion. The lead alien spoke again, its musical voice now tinged with uncertainty. "We do not understand. Have we committed a faux pas?" Secretary General Okafor, struggling to maintain her composure, stepped forward. No, esteemed delegates. You've done nothing wrong. It's just, well, that particular greeting is somewhat outdated and informal for this setting." The alien's skin rippled in what might have been embarrassment. "Our apologies. We believed it to be a standard greeting based on its frequent use in your transmissions." Marcus, still chuckling, couldn't help but chime in. "Let me guess. You've been watching a lot of late 90s beer commercials." The Skithric tilted its head again, We found your advertising transmissions to be most informative about Earth culture. Was this assessment incorrect? Zara, despite her best efforts to maintain decorum, felt a smile tugging at her lips. The mental image of these elegant, advanced beings studiously taking notes on beer commercials and sitcoms was just too absurd. Perhaps, Secretary General Okafor said diplomatically, we should take some time to discuss the nuances of Earth culture and communication. There's much we can learn from each other. The lead Skithric nodded, its skin patterns shifting to a calmer configuration. We would welcome such an exchange. Our goal is to understand and coexist harmoniously with your species. As the formal introductions continued, Zara found herself relaxing slightly. The alien's mistake, far from being a diplomatic disaster, had served to break the ice in a way no carefully prepared speech could have. She leaned towards Marcus, whispering, I guess you were right about the jokes, Doctor. Marcus grinned. Just wait until they discover puns. Interstellar relations will never be the same. As the meeting progressed, humans and Skithric alike found themselves navigating a minefield of potential misunderstandings, each one funnier than the last. The aliens' literal interpretation of human idioms led to some particularly amusing moments. When one human delegate mentioned breaking the ice, the Skithric looked alarmed and assured everyone that they had no intention of damaging Earth's polar regions. A casual "let's table that discussion" resulted in confused aliens looking around for a table to place the conversation upon. Through it all, laughter served as a universal translator, bridging the gap between species far more effectively than any technology. The Skithric, initially puzzled by the human propensity for humor, began to show signs of understanding. Their skin patterns would shift in sync with human laughter, and occasionally they would emit a sound like tinkling crystals that seemed to be their version of amusement. As the historic first meeting drew to a close, both humans and aliens felt a sense of optimism about the future. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, misunderstandings, and potential conflicts, but they had discovered a powerful tool for overcoming these obstacles: the ability to laugh together. Secretary General Okafor addressed the assembly one final time. Today marks the beginning of a new era for both our peoples. There will be much to learn, much to overcome. But I believe that as long as we can find reasons to smile together, there's hope for a bright future for humans and Skithric alike. The lead Skithric stepped forward, its skin glowing with patterns that somehow conveyed both solemnity and warmth. We concur, Earth friends, and in the spirit of your human customs, we would like to conclude with another traditional Earth farewell. Zara tensed, wondering what pop culture reference the aliens had misinterpreted this time. To her surprise, the Skithric raised its hand in a perfect imitation of a certain pointy-eared science fiction character and intoned, "Live long and prosper." The chamber erupted in applause and laughter. As Zara clapped along with the rest, she caught Marcus's eye. The xenolinguist winked at her, his expression saying, "See, laughter really is the best universal translator." As the delegates began to disperse, humans and aliens mingling cautiously but warmly, Zara allowed herself to truly relax for the first time since the alien ship appeared. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity had made a promising start. And if nothing else, the next few years promised to be endlessly entertaining. After all, she mused, watching this Skithric ambassador attempt to shake hands with a human counterpart and getting tangled in its own elongated fingers in the process. The universe had a sense of humor. It was about time humanity learned to laugh along with it. The galactic giggle. 6 months after the historic first contact, the novelty of alien presence on Earth had somewhat worn off. The Skithric had established an embassy in New York, and humans were becoming accustomed to seeing the tall, shimmering beings gliding down city streets or appearing on talk shows. Captain Zora Chen, however, found herself with little time to adjust to the new normal. As one of the few humans with extensive experience interacting with the Skithric, she had been reassigned to a new joint human-Skithric space station orbiting Earth. The Harmony, as it was optimistically named, was meant to be a symbol of cooperation between the two species. Zara floated through the station's corridors, the lack of gravity making her short ponytail drift like seaweed. She nodded to passing crew members, both human and Skithric, as she made her way to the command center. As the doors slid open with a soft hiss, she was greeted by a cacophony of alarms and flashing lights. At the center of the chaos stood Dr. Marcus Reddy, wildly gesticulating as he tried to explain something to a very confused-looking Skithric officer. "Captain on deck," someone called out, and the human crew snapped to attention. The Skithric, still not entirely comfortable with human military protocols, rippled their skin in what they had learned was a respectful greeting. "At ease," Zara said, pushing off a wall to glide towards Marcus and the Skithric. "What's the situation, Doctor?" Marcus ran a hand through his unruly hair, somehow making it even messier in the Zerog environment. "Well, Captain, it seems we've had a bit of a cultural misunderstanding." The Skithric officer, whom Zara recognized as Lieutenant 6, bobbed in agreement. "I fear I may have inadvertently activated your species' combat protocols, Captain Chen." Zara raised an eyebrow. "Combat protocols? Lieutenant, we're on a scientific and diplomatic mission. We don't have combat protocols." Marcus cleared his throat. "Ah, well, you see, Zix here was trying to learn more about human customs. I may have mentioned the concept of practical jokes, and well, understanding dawned on Zara, along with a headache. Let me guess. You tried to pull a prank, didn't you, Lieutenant?" Zix's skin flushed a deep purple, the Skithric equivalent of a blush. "I believed I was engaging in a traditional human bonding ritual. I did not realize it would cause such alarm." Zara pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting back a smile despite herself. "All right, what exactly did you do?" Marcus grinned sheepishly. "Zix may have reprogrammed the station's announcement system to play 'Never Gonna Give You Up' on a loop." For a moment, Zara just stared at them. Then, to everyone's surprise, including her own, she burst out laughing. The tension in the room immediately dissipated, replaced by a mixture of relief and amusement. "Let me get this straight," Zara said between chuckles. "You rickrolled the entire space station." Zix tilted his elongated head. "I do not understand. Who is this Rick? And why does he roll?" This sent another wave of laughter through the human crew members. Even some of the Skithric were emitting their crystalline laughing sound, more out of shared amusement than true understanding. As Zara calmed down, she addressed the room. "All right, people. False alarm. Lieutenant Zix was just trying out some human-style humor. Let's get those alarms turned off and systems back to normal." As the crew bustled to restore order, Zara pulled Marcus and Zix aside. "While I appreciate the attempt at cultural exchange, maybe we should stick to less disruptive forms of humor in the future. We don't want the folks back on Earth thinking we're having an intergalactic incident every time someone tells a joke." Zix's skin rippled apologetically. "Of course, Captain. I shall endeavor to choose my pranks more carefully in the future." Marcus clapped the alien on what passed for a shoulder. "Don't worry, Zix. We'll work on your comedic timing. Maybe start with some knock-knock jokes." Before Zara could protest the wisdom of teaching the Skithric more potentially disruptive humor, the station's communication system crackled to life. The face of Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka, Earth's representative to the newly formed Interstellar Council, appeared on the main view screen. "Captain Chen," the Admiral's voice was tense. "We've received some disturbing news from the Skithric homeworld. I need you and your team to report to Earth immediately for an emergency briefing." The light-hearted atmosphere in the command center evaporated instantly. Zara straightened, all business once more. "Understood, Admiral. We'll depart immediately. Can you give us any details?" Admiral Tanaka's expression was grim. "Not over this channel, but prepare yourselves. The peace we've been building may be in jeopardy." As the transmission cut off, Zara turned to her crew. The humans looked worried, while the Skithric's skin had taken on a pale, anxious hue. "You heard the Admiral," Zara said, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "Let's move out." As they prepared for emergency departure, Zara couldn't help but think about the strange turns her life had taken since that first meeting with the Skithric. From laughter to potential crisis in the blink of an eye. Whatever was waiting for them back on Earth, she had a feeling they'd need every ounce of that human resilience. And yes, humor, to face it. Little did she know, the universe had a few more surprises in store, some terrifying, some hilarious, but all of them about to change the course of human and Skithric history forever. As the Harmony undocked from its orbital position and began its descent towards Earth, Zara gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the twinkling lights, lay answers to questions she hadn't even thought to ask yet. And maybe, just maybe, a few more cosmic jokes waiting to be understood. Laughter in the face of danger. The sleek shuttle carrying Captain Zara Chen, Dr. Marcus Reddy, and Lieutenant Zix streaked through Earth's atmosphere, leaving a fiery trail in its wake. As they approached the landing pad at the United Earth Space Force headquarters, Zara couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom that had settled in her stomach. The moment they touched down, they were whisked away to a high-security conference room deep within the compound. Admiral Tanaka was waiting for them, his usually stoic face etched with worry lines. "Captain, Doctor, Lieutenant," he nodded to each of them in turn. "Thank you for coming so quickly. We have a situation." Zara leaned forward, her body tense. "What's happening, Admiral?" Tanaka tapped a control panel, and a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the table. It showed a massive fleet of ships, unlike anything Zara had ever seen before. 3 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations picked up this armada entering the edge of our solar system, Tanaka explained. "They're not Skithric, and they're not responding to any of our hails." Zix's skin paled to an almost translucent state. "By the crystal moons," he whispered, "it's the Vroktar." Marcus turned to the alien, his eyes wide. "The who now?" "The Vroktar," Zix repeated, his musical voice tinged with fear. "They were our greatest enemies. We believe them to have been wiped out centuries ago in a terrible war." Tanaka nodded grimly. Apparently, reports of their demise were greatly exaggerated. And now they're heading straight for Earth. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, barely 6 months into its first alien alliance, was about to face an interstellar war. Zara's mind raced. "What are our options, Admiral?" "Limited," Tanaka admitted. "We're mobilizing every ship we have, but compared to that fleet," he gestured at the hologram, "we're severely outgunned." Marcus, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly perked up. "Wait a minute. Zix, you said the Vroktar were your enemies, right? What can you tell us about them?" Zix's skin rippled with remembered fear. "They are a warrior race, consumed by their desire for conquest. They see other species as nothing more than resources to be exploited or obstacles to be eliminated." "Charming," Zora muttered. "But there must be something we can use against them. No species is invincible." Zix hesitated. "Well, there is one thing. The Vroktar have no concept of humor or levity. They see it as a weakness, a flaw to be purged. In fact, they are physically incapable of laughter." Marcus's eyes lit up with that familiar spark of an idea forming. "No concept of humor, eh? Well, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary beings, I believe we've just found our secret weapon." Admiral Tanaka looked skeptical. "Doctor, this is hardly the time for jokes." "On the contrary, Admiral," Marcus grinned, "this is exactly the time for jokes. The biggest, most elaborate joke in human history." Over the next hour, as the Vroktar fleet drew ever closer, Marcus outlined his wild plan. It was crazy, unprecedented, and quite possibly humanity's only hope. Zara found herself nodding along, a smile tugging at her lips despite the dire situation. It's so absurd, it just might work, she said finally. Admiral Tanaka looked from face to face, seeing the determination in their eyes. He sighed heavily. Very well. God help us all. But let's do it. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Every comedian, writer, and creative mind on Earth was called into service. Special effects teams worked around the clock. The plan was insane, but it was the only one they had. As the Vroktar fleet entered Earth orbit, instead of being met with defiant military resistance, they were greeted by the biggest, most elaborate practical joke ever conceived. Massive holograms projected into space showed Earth transforming into a giant whoopee cushion. Every transmission sent to the Vroktar ships was laden with puns so terrible they would make even the most hardened dad joke enthusiast groan. The International Space Station, repurposed for the occasion, unfurled a massive banner reading "Welcome to Earth, PSYCH," complete with a comically drawn smiley face. On the ground, flash mobs in every major city performed synchronized dances to the Chicken Dance and Macarena, their movements visible from space. The Vroktar, confronted with this bizarre and utterly incomprehensible display, were thrown into confusion. Their rigid, humorless minds simply couldn't process what they were seeing. Zara, Marcus, and Zix watched from the command center as the Vroktar fleet hung motionless in orbit, not attacking, but clearly at a loss. "It's working," Zara breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Marcus grinned. "Of course it is. Laughter is the best medicine, even for interstellar war." Just then, a transmission came through from the Vroktar flagship. The face that appeared on the screen was like something out of a nightmare. All angles and sharp edges, with eyes that burned with cold fury. "What is the meaning of this?" the Vroktar commander snarled. "Is this how you prepare for glorious battle?" Zara stepped forward, fighting to keep a straight face. "Oh, this isn't battle preparation," she said calmly. "This is how we say hello on Earth. Did you like our welcome dance?" The commander's face contorted in confusion. "Welcome dance. Oh yes," Marcus chimed in. "It's a sacred Earth tradition. In fact, we have a special one just for you. Hit it, people." On cue, every screen on Earth and in orbit began playing Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up," the ultimate Rickroll broadcast to an alien invasion fleet. The Vroktar commander's eyes widened in what might have been the first expression of surprise his species had ever experienced. What is this madness?" Zix, emboldened by the success of the plan so far, floated forward. "It's not madness, Vroktar. It's joy. It's laughter. It's something your people have forgotten. And it's more powerful than any weapon." As if to punctuate his point, a massive hologram of a kitten playing a keyboard appeared behind the Vroktar fleet. The absurdity of the situation finally broke through Zara's professional demeanor, and she burst out laughing. To everyone's amazement, a strange sound came from the Vroktar commander. It started as a sort of strangled growl, then morphed into something that could almost be called a chuckle. The laughter spread through the command center, through the cities below, and somehow, impossibly, to the Vroktar ships themselves. Centuries of rigid discipline crumbled in the face of pure, unadulterated silliness. As Earth laughed, the Vroktar fleet slowly, almost sheepishly, began to retreat. The invasion that never was ended not with a bang, but with a cosmic chortle. In the aftermath, as humanity celebrated its most improbable victory, Zara found Marcus and Zix in a quiet corner of the command center. "I can't believe that actually worked," she said, shaking her head in amazement. Marcus grinned. "Never underestimate the power of a good laugh, Captain. It might just save the universe one day." Zix's skin shimmered with what Zara had come to recognize as happiness. "I believe I'm beginning to understand this human concept of humor," he said. "It is beautiful." As they looked out at the stars, the threat averted and new possibilities stretching out before them, Zara couldn't help but smile. Whatever the universe had in store for them next, she had a feeling they'd face it with a joke and a laugh. After all, in a cosmos full of wonders and terrors, sometimes the best response was simply to find the funny side. And humanity, it seemed, was uniquely qualified to lead the way in that particular mission. The universal language of jokes. In the months following the Vroktar's hasty retreat, Earth buzzed with a new energy. The incident, quickly dubbed the Great Cosmic Comedy by the media, had catapulted humanity into a new era of interstellar relations. Earth had become something of a galactic curiosity. The planet that laughed in the face of invasion and won. Captain Zora Chen found herself at the center of this whirlwind. As one of the key figures in the Laugh Offensive, she had been promoted to commander and assigned to lead Earth's first deep space diplomatic mission. Their destination, a massive space station at the edge of the Milky Way, where representatives from dozens of alien species gathered to discuss the fate of the galaxy. As their ship, the aptly named SS Chuckle, approached the station, Zara stood on the bridge, taking in the awe-inspiring view. The space station looked like a glittering snowflake, its crystalline arms stretching out into the void. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Dr. Marcus Reddy said, coming to stand beside her. His wild hair had been somewhat tamed for the occasion, though his eyes still sparkled with barely contained mischief. Zara nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Hard to believe we're really here. First contact was less than a year ago, and now look at us." "Well," Marcus grinned, "nothing brings people together like a good laugh, or aliens, as the case may be." As they docked with the station, Zora couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves. This was arguably the most important diplomatic mission in Earth's history. The fate of humanity's place in the galactic community rested on their shoulders. The Earth delegation, led by Zara and Marcus, made their way through the station's winding corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes bustled around them, some humanoid, others defying easy description. Zara caught snippets of conversation in languages that sounded like everything from melodious birdsong to grinding gears. Finally, they arrived at the Grand Assembly Hall. The room was massive, with tiered seating surrounding a central platform. Representatives from what must have been hundreds of different species filled the seats, creating a dizzying array of colors, shapes, and sounds. As the Earth delegation took their place on the central platform, a hush fell over the assembly. A tall, elegant being that seemed to be made of living crystal floated forward. "Welcome, representatives of Earth." The being's voice resonated through the hall without seeming to come from any specific point. "I am Siler, facilitator of the Galactic Council. We have heard much about your species since your unusual first contact." Zara stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Thank you for your welcome, Facilitator Xaler. We are honored to be here." Haler's crystalline form shimmered. "The honor is ours, Commander Chen. Your species has accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. You have brought laughter to the stars." A murmur ran through the assembly. Zara could sense a mix of curiosity, amusement, and skepticism from the gathered aliens. "We come in peace," Zara began, "and in friendship. Earth wishes to join the galactic community as partners and allies." "A noble goal," Tyler nodded. "But I must ask, how can a species that treats invasion as a joke be trusted with the serious matters of galactic politics?" Zara felt a moment of panic. This was the crux of their mission, to prove that humanity's humor wasn't a sign of weakness or frivolity, but a strength. Just then, Marcus stepped forward. "If I may, Facilitator." At Exhaler's nod, he continued, "Humor isn't just about jokes and laughter. It's about perspective. The ability to see things from different angles, to find joy even in difficult situations. It's about creativity and quick thinking, all qualities that I'd argue are essential for galactic diplomacy." The assembly buzzed with discussion. Zara could see some aliens nodding in agreement while others looked skeptical. "An interesting perspective, Dr. Reddy," Sahiler said. Perhaps you could demonstrate this diplomatic humor for us." Marcus grinned. "I thought you'd never ask." He cleared his throat dramatically. Why did the human cross the galaxy? The hall fell silent, every alien leaning forward in anticipation. To get to the other tide. Marcus delivered the punchline with a flourish. For a moment, there was silence. Then, gradually, a wave of laughter began to build. It started with the Skithric delegates, their crystalline laughter chiming through the hall. Then the more humanoid species joined in, their laughter ranging from deep belly laughs to high-pitched giggles. Even the more exotic life forms seemed to be expressing amusement in their own unique ways, flashing colors, emitting pleasant scents, or vibrating at harmonious frequencies. As the laughter died down, Sailor's crystalline form seemed to glow brighter. Fascinating. It seems there is more to this human humor than we realized. But how does this translate to practical diplomacy? Zara stepped forward again. Humor allows us to bridge divides, to find common ground even with those very different from ourselves. It helps us to not take ourselves too seriously, to be open to new ideas and perspectives. And sometimes, when faced with a serious threat, a bit of absurdity can provide the unexpected solution. She gestured to the assembled aliens. Look around this room. Moments ago, we were all separate, divided by our differences. But for a brief moment, we were united in laughter. That's the power of humor. It's a universal language. The assembly buzzed with excited discussion. Zara could see nods of agreement, gestures she interpreted as applause, and what she hoped were smiles on the faces of those aliens that had faces. Taylor raised their crystalline arms, calling for silence. Representatives of Earth, you have given us much to consider. Your species is young, but you bring a unique perspective that may indeed be valuable to our galactic community. The facilitator turned to address the entire assembly. I propose that we grant Earth provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with a probationary period to allow them to demonstrate the practical applications of their unique approach to diplomacy. The vote was nearly unanimous. As the Earth delegation was swarmed by curious and friendly aliens, all eager to learn more about human humor, Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She turned to Marcus, who was already deep in conversation with a group of aliens that looked like sentient clouds. "Well, Doctor, it looks like your bad pun just changed the course of human history." Marcus grinned. "Just doing my part for interstellar relations, Commander. Now, who wants to hear about the time an Earthling, a Skithric, and a Vroktar walked into a bar?" As laughter once again filled the Grand Assembly Hall, Zara couldn't help but smile. They had come to the stars seeking allies and found something even better: friends. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and humanity was more than happy to share the joke. The last laugh. 5 years had passed since Earth's induction into the Galactic Council, and the universe had never been the same. Humanity's unique blend of humor, creativity, and resilience had sparked a cultural revolution across the galaxy. Comedy clubs had sprung up on distant planets, stand-up comedians were revered as diplomats, and even the once humorless Vroktar had developed a taste for slapstick. Commander Zara Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Council's headquarters, gazing out at the swirling cosmos. The view never failed to take her breath away, a constant reminder of how far they'd come and how much further they had to go. "Credit for your thoughts, Admiral." Dr. Marcus Reddy's voice broke through her reverie. Despite the years and his new role as Earth's chief cinecultural attaché, he still sported that same mischievous grin. Zara turned, smiling at her old friend. "Just reflecting on how much has changed, Marcus. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here when we first met the Skithric?" Marcus chuckled. "You mean, did I think our first alien encounter would lead to me teaching knock-knock jokes to a sentient gas cloud? Can't say that was in my 5-year plan." Their laughter was interrupted by an urgent beep from Zara's communicator. "Admiral Chen, your presence is required in the Emergency Council chamber immediately," came the voice of her aide. Exchanging worried glances, Zara and Marcus hurried to the chamber. Inside, they found a gathering of the highest-ranking representatives from across the galaxy, all wearing expressions of grave concern, or their species equivalent. Facilitator Xyler, their crystalline form pulsing with an anxious energy, floated to the center of the room. "Thank you all for coming so quickly. We've received a transmission from the edge of the galaxy. It appears we are not as alone in the universe as we thought." A hologram flickered to life, showing a massive, dark shape moving through space. It defied easy description. Part machine, part organic matter, and wholly alien. "We're calling them the Enigma," Taylor continued. "They've already consumed 3 star systems and are moving towards the core worlds. Our weapons seem to have no effect." The room erupted in panicked discussion. Proposals were shouted, arguments broke out, and for a moment, it seemed like chaos would reign. Then, a familiar crystalline laugh cut through the noise. All eyes turned to Zix, now the Skithric ambassador to the council. "My friends," Zix said, his skin shimmering with amusement, "are we not forgetting the most powerful weapon in our arsenal? The very thing that brought us all together." Understanding dawned on Zora's face. "Humor," she breathed. Marcus grinned. "Now you're talking my language. But how do we weaponize a joke against that?" He gestured at the looming shape in the hologram. For hours, the greatest minds in the galaxy debated, brainstormed, and yes, laughed. Ideas were proposed and discarded, each more outlandish than the last. But slowly, a plan began to take shape. As the Enigma approached the first inhabited system in its path, it was met not by a fleet of warships, but by the greatest show the universe had ever seen. Thousands of ships, each broadcasting on all frequencies, surrounded the Enigma. But instead of attacks, they unleashed a barrage of jokes, puns, and comedy sketches. Holographic projectors turned nearby asteroids into cosmic whoopee cushions. Tractor beams orchestrated an intricate dance of planets and moons, creating a galactic smiley face. At first, there was no reaction from the Enigma. But as the onslaught of humor continued, something unexpected happened. The massive entity began to change color, shifting from deep black to a spectrum of vibrant hues. "It's working," Zora exclaimed, watching from the command ship. "But how?" Marcus, who had been analyzing the data pouring in, looked up with wide eyes. "It's not a weapon, Zora. It's a child. An infant cosmic entity, reacting to stimuli for the first time." As if to confirm his words, the Enigma began to pulse with light, each flash corresponding to a particularly good joke. The destructions of the star systems hadn't been an attack. It had been a baby's uncoordinated grabbing. Over the next few weeks, representatives from every species worked tirelessly to communicate with the Enigma, using humor as their primary language. Slowly but surely, they began to understand each other. The Enigma, they learned, was indeed a newborn cosmic entity, the first of its kind to be born in eons. It had been drawn to the galaxy by the laughter and joy emanating from the worlds touched by Earth's influence. In the end, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced was neutralized not by weapons or warfare, but by a cosmic comedy show. As the crisis passed and celebrations erupted across the galaxy, Zara found herself once again on the observation deck, this time joined by Marcus, Zix, and representatives from a dozen other species. "You know," Zara said, looking out at the now playful Enigma dancing among the stars, "when I joined the Space Force, I never thought my most important mission would involve teaching an infant universe to laugh." Marcus grinned. "Just goes to show, Admiral. In the grand comedy of the cosmos, the joke's on us, and that's exactly how it should be." As laughter filled the room, echoing out into the vastness of space, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of profound joy. They had faced the unknown with open minds and open hearts, and in doing so, had not only saved the galaxy, but expanded their understanding of life itself. The universe, it turned out, had a wonderful sense of humor. And humanity, with its love of laughter and ability to find joy even in the darkest moments, was perfectly positioned to be in on the cosmic joke. As the laughter of 1,000 species mingled with the delighted pulses of a newborn cosmic entity, Zura knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them the same way they had faced everything else, with courage, creativity, and above all, a really good sense of humor. After all, in a universe full of wonders and mysteries, sometimes the best response was simply to laugh and enjoy the ride.